SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
At Dossett Big 4 in Tupelo, we do things differently. We believe in honest, fair prices and treating our customers like family. Whether you're looking for a new or used GMC or Buick, we've got you covered. Come on down to Dossett Big 4, where you'll get a great deal without the hassle. That's Dossett Big 4 in Tupelo.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to MidDays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, and I'm on location at the Westin in downtown Jackson for the Madison Business League and Foundation's annual League and Legislature. Looking forward to a jam-packed day today from downtown Jackson. Rhino, safe and sound, back in the SuperTalk Mississippi headquarters, where we'll be, of course, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Hump Day.
It's still too dang cold out there, in my view. It's middle of March now. We're getting on through it. It's going to be a little warmer this afternoon, I believe, and then back in the 80s tomorrow and through the weekend. Right, Rhino? That's the forecast that I'm looking at.
Yeah, with a chance of rain.
Okay. Well, shoot. You know, it's that time of year. So, well, we're all buckled up, ready to go down here at the Westin. Looking forward to a jam-packed 3 hours here on MidDays. Get you caught up on what's going on. First, the president, in an attempt to address soaring gas prices, he is waiving temporarily the Jones Act. Now, this is a bit of an obscure in that piece of legislation in that you don't hear about it a lot. You don't talk about it a lot. Doesn't enter the news a lot. The Jones Act typically prevents foreign flagged ships from carrying cargo between American ports. So the president feels that, and his inner circle obviously have advised him on this matter. 60-day Jones Act waiver, and this is in an effort to mitigate the short-term disruptions to the oil market. That's why the United States military continues to hammer Iran, pursuing its objectives in Operation Epic Fury. This information was provided to Bloomberg News initially by White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. So we'll see if that has any impact. By the way, you guys are probably noticing that the price of a diesel is now north of $5 a gallon. So we're certainly currently reeling from the effects of this war that has created a shortage of the supply of oil in the global market, and that is pushing oil prices ever higher. This morning when I checked a little while ago, about $95 a barrel. Don't have the tape in front of me today on the remote. And that has got the markets selling off as well. Something else that's got them a bit spooked, talking about the investment community, is that wholesale prices rose 0.7% in February. That's much more than expected, and are up 3.4% on an annualized basis. Wholesale prices, the producer price index, that's the metric that is used to measure the cost of inputs at the wholesale level, which, of course, typically drive higher prices at the retail level, and the measurement for that, as you know, is the Consumer Price Index. So that's causing a problem for markets. They're selling off a bit, and I think what it also means, Rhino, is that today the Federal Reserve is scheduled to meet. I would not expect there to be any downward action on interest rates. And, in fact, I think the market is betting that rates are going to stay unchanged. In the meantime, Kevin Warsh, the president's selection to succeed Jerome Powell as the chairman of the Federal Reserve, is awaiting his confirmation to serve in that role. And I think the president is expecting that he would act rather swiftly in reducing the benchmark interest rate. This backdrop of the PPI this month was a shocker, and that's going to cause some problems for that. Food prices up 2.4%, energy up 2.3%, and that's really before the price of oil spiked as it has since the war began, to some extent at least. So this measurement has got economists a bit concerned and investors a bit concerned as well. On the war front, senior Iranian leader Larijani, Soleimani, and Khatib, all these are leaders that were all killed in strikes by Israel. That's what Israel is reporting. And it just feels like that their leadership ranks are being eliminated rapidly. It's not really clear who the heck's running the country. The U.S. military reports that 13 U.S. service members have been killed, about 200 wounded. And in Iran, it's reported by the United States military, some 1,300 people have been killed, 850 in Lebanon, 12 in Israel, all as a result of this war. You know, the president has told us that the Iranian military has been decimated, and that certainly does appear to be the case, yet there continue to be reports of Iran attacking in the region and able to get ballistic missiles off to prosecute those attacks, and that is worrisome. That's concerning. As long as they can still get missiles off, that certainly means that the United States military is going to continue with its pursuits and war efforts to 100% eliminate their ability to launch any kind of armaments, in particular these ballistic missiles that have longer ranges and can do a lot of damage and often can get through defenses in the region. So hopefully we can get to a point where that's no longer a risk. And still the White House and the administration say that the Strait of Hormuz is not yet safe for the United States Navy to begin the process of escorting ships through the strait carrying oil for further production. And that, of course, is causing the price to spike, and that's why your gas is higher at the pump. Let's hope we get this thing put to bed. I think it will all be worth it, and it will be behind us, and we'll be on to a much safer world and returning to normalcy and sanity in the region, but also from a price of oil perspective. Brandon from Cleveland says, I own a tow truck company, 5 tow trucks in Cleveland, and diesel is up. But it was up in the Obama administration and Biden administration. Got through it then. We'll get through this now. I support the president. I think we have to be honest about potential political consequences. I support this effort as well and think that it was the right thing to do to ensure that Iran does not achieve nuclear capability, and honestly that their military is completely neutered so that they can't carry out even attacks with conventional warheads. But we have to be honest, if this situation continues, it is going to play a part in the midterm elections. Now, I certainly acknowledge that people have short memories. And if you can get through it, get things back to some level of where they were prior to the attacks, I don't think there will be any major fallout. But if that's not the case, no doubt that will figure in. Why is it that we don't get it but 1% of our oil? Where did we get the rest of the oil at, Joey the trucker? So consider this, Joey, that the price of oil, regardless of how it's traded between suppliers and buyers, the price of oil in all those transactions is determined by the global commodities market for oil. So even though the United States doesn't actually import a great deal of oil from the Middle East, in fact, our biggest oil supplier outside of the country is Canada, accounting for about 50% of all the oil we import. But the price is set by the global markets, those that participate in the sale and purchase of oil on the global markets. There are some who subvert that, such as Iran selling direct to China, and they set their own price. We're stepping aside for a break. We're coming right back at the Westin in downtown Jackson for the Madison County Business League and Foundation League and Legislature. Stay with us.
Family Termite is...
This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
We're rolling. Hit it. Go. Play it.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Westin in downtown Jackson for the Madison County Business League and Foundation annual League and Legislature event, highlighted by keynote speaker, the Honorable Lieutenant Governor of Mississippi, Delbert Hosemann. He will be addressing what will be a very well-attended event. Just looking in the ballroom there. As is always the case, Madison County business folks really turn out for this event and scarf up all these tables, and they'll pack that place, probably 500 or so people, and they will hear remarks from the Lieutenant Governor. Later on today, we'll also talk on the program to the Mayor of Gluckstadt, Bubba Morrison. We'll get some thoughts from Attorney General Lynn Fitch at 11:35 today. Sam Kelly, a partner at Brunini Law Firm, serves as the Madison County Business League and Foundation Chair. He and Phil Buffington, also an attorney with Balch and Bingham, past Madison County Business League and Foundation Chair, current Chair of the Government Relations Committee, will join Middays at 11:50. We'll also have Joey Deason wrapping things up today. At 12:50, he's the executive director of the Madison County Economic Development Authority. We'll see what news he has to share on potentially some new investments, new projects in my home county of Madison. The federal government, the Senate today, is taking up, started yesterday actually, the SAVE Act. Save America Act is the official formal name of this measure. Considered somewhat controversial, I guess you could call it that, because it really doesn't have any Democrat support whatsoever. Senate Majority Leader John Thune, the Republican from South Dakota, says a vote on the bill will occur this week. I don't know about that, if that's going to happen or not. Says a drawn-out debate is expected. And, of course, it doesn't look like the votes are there to activate the talking filibuster, which would require the Democrats to talk a very long time, as long as they can. And, of course, that would just gum up the works there in the United States Capitol, in that no other legislation would be considered while a filibuster is occurring on this particular measure. The president has asked for the filibuster to be ended through this process. The talking filibuster, that is. They've asked the Republicans to invoke the talking filibuster, since it doesn't appear, I should restate that the votes exist to just outright end the filibuster. So you can have a silent version and a talking version, and it looks like that the votes aren't there, is what Senator Thune is reporting. One of the problems there from a Republican senator perspective is the senator from North Carolina, Tom Tillis. He says he's not on board with ending the filibuster, and Rhino doesn't seem to be a big fan of the SAVE Act as well. He, of course, out of there. He is retiring from the United States Senate, giving up his seat, and North Carolina will have a very hotly contested race in the general election in November to replace the retiring Senator Tillis. But he's been a bit of a thorn in the side of the president in this regard. And so it looks like that I would say less than 50% chance this bill's going to pass. And again, if you can't get the filibuster ended, and if the talking filibuster is invoked and the Democrats successfully talk long enough to just gum up the works there, I suspect the leader would just call for cloture, at which point there would be a vote and it wouldn't pass because it would require the numbers to get through the filibuster to do that. So many Democrats oppose this measure. Voting rights groups have warned that the legislation could disenfranchise millions of voters by imposing citizenship and photographic identification requirements. How silly is it to say that a photograph in the year 2025 would disenfranchise voters when we all run around taking photos all the time with a device in the palm of our hand? Even those that they maintain would be disenfranchised. It's really not that hard, and it would not be that hard to obtain a photo ID that ascertains and confirms that the person showing up to vote is actually a citizen. Around 21 million Americans don't have these documents, that's the estimate, that prove their citizenship readily available, but it's not hard to get. A birth certificate, your marriage certificate, that's just not that hard to get. The combination of those two for a female who has been married and taken on their husband's name, obviously their name wouldn't match the name on their birth certificate, their birth name, so bring both and you're good to go. If that hasn't happened, you just need a birth certificate. Not that big a deal. 21 million Americans, according to this study, don't have these documents. 2.6 million lack government-issued photo ID of any kind. That, according to the Brennan Center for Justice and the University of Maryland's Center for Democracy and Civic Engagement. Low-income and minority voters are more likely to lack the documents required in the Save America Act. How the heck do they know that? And is that not a form of soft bigotry? And then they go on to point out what we were just talking about, that many married women would also have additional barriers to registering. Now, you know, it's crazy that the way these various media outlets headline articles about this issue and debate. This is from the New York Times today. Senate opens bitter debate on stiffening voting rules. That's the way they describe it. On the Hill, Republicans collide with Trump over no excuse absentee voting. Oh, geez. And that's and the photo next to that headline is, of course, of the man himself, Senator Tom Tillis from North Carolina. The president wants to eliminate vote by mail without excuses. He's okay with, essentially he seems to support and align with the law that exists here in the state of Mississippi, that you don't have to have, your excuse can include, I should say, illness or military duty. And, of course, in Mississippi, if you are away because of work and unable to get to the polls on Election Day, that qualifies as well. And the president's fine with that. What he doesn't support is no excuse. And some states have that, where someone can just vote absentee or by mail without an excuse. That's not the way it works in the state of Mississippi. You must sign a document showing the particular excuse that you are using in order to vote early or by mail. And certainly we want to take care of those who are infirmed and those who are wearing our country's uniform that may be out of the country, unable to get to their polling place in their home state. Sure, we want to take care of those, and so does the president. But this is not an onerous requirement. It's just insane to me that we have a Constitution that says that the framing document that drives all of our law, underpins all of our laws, and says you got to be a citizen to vote. And we have people in Washington that don't seem to dispute that, but on the other hand, they're not willing to support measures that would, in fact, prove that someone is a citizen before they vote, for obvious reasons. But Senator Tom Tillis, Lisa Murkowski, they said they will not vote to proceed to the legislation. That means not ending the filibuster. And some of the aides that work for Mitch McConnell and John Curtis, also two senators from, of course, Kentucky and Utah, respectively, they have indicated to the press that their senators that they work for are not supportive of ending the filibuster, which would allow the legislation to proceed. So if I were a betting man, I'd say this thing's not going anywhere, and that's a dang shame. It really is. When we come back, we got to tell you about the candidate who won the primary in Illinois to replace Senator Dick Durbin, also endorsed by the governor, J.B. Pritzker. You won't believe it. Coming right back, the Element Wealth Studio is down at the Westin for the Madison County Business League and Foundation League and Legislature.
From the Seabrook.
Is everybody ready?
I'm ready.
Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Westin. That's where we have relocated the Element Wealth Studio today. That's because it's the big League and Legislature event, an annual event hosted by the Madison County Business League and Foundation. On the C Spire text line, Tyler from Knox Peters says, the president has never supported mail-in voting for cause or otherwise. Stop spreading misinformation and being fake news. Sorry, you're wrong. I can quote you directly from his recently delivered State of the Union address. Direct quote from the president during the State of the Union address. No more crooked mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military, or travel. None. Let me repeat. No more crooked mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military, or travel. None. I can assure you I would not have said that had I not vetted exactly what the president's current position is. It is true that at one time he wanted to completely ban all mail-in voting. But then I think he was approached with, well, sir, that really would be a problem for our military. And even the president believes that mail-in voting is acceptable for our military or for those who are disabled or infirmed. I agree. I think that's reasonable. The big problem with mail-in voting doesn't come from the actual drawn-out process and structured process of mail-in voting requiring a request of the voter from their registrar, whomever administers elections. Typically, as it is in Mississippi, it's the county clerk. You request a ballot. You sign an affidavit stating your reason for not being available on Election Day. That, of course, is a legal document that would be punishable for whatever the consequences are for falsifying documents in a particular state. If you lied, if you didn't tell the truth. I've never heard of anybody being charged with any sort of crime for doing so in Mississippi. But then you are sent the mail-in ballot, you complete it, and you return it. You have to sign it and sign over the envelope flap, and that is compared to the signature. It's the way it's supposed to work on file to authenticate it, and then it is included in the storage for absentee ballots prior to Election Day. That's the way we do it in Mississippi. That is a relatively safe and secure mail-in voting procedure. Where problems occur are in those states such as Utah, which is actually a red Republican state, and Rhino, there's a couple of others as well that do this, as we've talked about, where they send a ballot to everyone that's on the voter rolls in that state by law. They literally mail it to the address stored in the voter rolls, their statewide election management system in the respective states, and those just fly out the door and get sent. Assuming that the voter of record lives at the address and will receive the ballot, and then they can complete them and return them. But when those millions of ballots are just floating around like that, absolutely, that opens the door up for all sorts of misdeeds and voting fraud, because they could just end up in the hands of people who really aren't the voter that the ballot was intended for, or who is on the record on the voter rolls, and then they just get completed, and you get some kind of bogus signature on there, and it depends on how strict the counties are in checking those signatures. Some actually use electronic systems that compare the signature on file electronically to the signature, a scan of the signature on the document. That's all supposed to work. Also, I believe, Rhino, in our state, if you vote by mail, pretty sure you have to get a notary to sign off on it. Isn't that right, Rhino, in the state of Mississippi, to attest to your identity? I think that's the case. But in these other states, it's just a free-for-all. Gazillions of ballots go out. They could end up in anybody's hands, be filled out by anybody, mailed back in, and counted. That's where the big problems happen. Not through a more structured process that requires both parties, both the voter and the person or the office that administers elections, to collaborate through this process of requesting a ballot, mailing a ballot, and then completing it, returning it, verifying the signature on it, and then accounting for it.
Yeah, you got to have your ballot signed, or the absentee ballot application has to be signed by an official authorized to administer an oath, such as a notary public. Unless you are temporarily or permanently physically disabled, they may have the application witnessed by a person who is at least 18 years of age.
Okay.
And then the bottom part of the envelope has the place to administer oaths or witness.
Exactly. Okay. So thank you for that. And so that obviously is a pretty dang good protection. But again, the fact that one has to request a ballot, that in itself is a pretty strong deterrent. The problem comes in, as I was just discussing, in the states that just mail them to everybody. I know Utah's one. I want to say, Rhino, is it Washington? Maybe even California. There's a handful of states that have this mass mail-out of ballots. And those things are, again, just floating out anywhere and everywhere and are subject to being completed in a dishonest way by the person other than the voter to whom it was addressed, and then returned and counted. That's a problem. The president's right about that, and I agree with him. And that, to me, should be prohibited.
Wait, so you're saying it's not normal to have a box of 50 ballots show up at a one-bedroom apartment?
Correct. You are correct. And that's exactly what happens. Thank you for providing an example scenario of exactly what happens. And we all know that the dang voter rolls have got gazillions of errors on them, including here in the state of Mississippi. And the Secretary of State, Michael Watson, and I, every time he's on, we talk about this. And he has advocated for legislation that would allow him to remove people who don't vote. I think in the prior two presidential elections, they can still be reinstated. But if they don't vote, good chance for two elections consecutively. Or maybe it even extended beyond that, right? Or like 2 in the last 4 or 5 or something like that. So if you missed one or missed 2 in a row, maybe that's it. I know there was some rule policy that he was advocating for that would allow, basically the intent is remove those who were just inactive, because there's a good chance they're not really valid voters anymore. And if they show up and they want to vote, right, they could sign an affidavit saying, no, I want to vote this time, here's who I am, and that gets checked out after they cast their ballot. And if it is found to be valid and authentic, their vote counts. Isn't that the way it works, Rhino? Did I describe that correctly? Yeah. That's what I thought. So it's not disenfranchising. It's just an effort to try to keep the rolls clean. We do have legislation in the state of Mississippi that kind of mirrors the SAVE Act. I want this bill to pass. I think it makes sense. It's still out there. I can't remember if it's going to conference or if we're waiting for concurrence. But basically, it would require our registrars to ensure that a person registering to vote, it provides documents that attest to their citizenship as opposed to just checking a box that says I'm a citizen. That's what the current process is. And then the other important thing is it would require our Secretary of State to compare the voters stored in the statewide elections management system to the SAVE database, not to be confused with the SAVE Act. That's the federal database that it can be used to determine and check an individual's citizenship status. And if that check finds that that person is not in that database as a legitimate, valid citizen, then it removes them from the statewide system. Again, if they show up to vote, say, no, I'm really a valid citizen, here are my documents, and I want to vote, you can do that. But this is a common sense policy, in my view, and I hope we get this thing passed. So it's kind of the Mississippi's version, if you will, of the SAVE Act, which we would implement without necessitating federal law to impose these requirements and restrictions. It's just common sense. Let's just make sure that the people on our voter rolls are valid citizens. Simple as that. SAVE Act. It's amazing to me the Democrats do not support it, and it's disappointing that we have some Republicans that won't support the president and others in this effort to implement and pass this legislation, the SAVE Act. But it looks like even all the various legislative procedural maneuvers with respect to the filibuster doesn't look like that's going to work. And the president's already said, I'm not signing another piece of legislation until the SAVE Act is passed. And that could gum up the works in getting his getting his federal chair nominee approved by the Senate. Coming right back down at the West End. Stay with us.
It's so awesome! Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Come on, let's get on with the show!
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Hello, I am
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. We are live at the Westin in downtown Jackson. We're here for the annual Madison County Business League and Foundation League and Legislature event. It's our great pleasure to welcome now Jan Collins, Executive Director of the Madison County Business League and Foundation, and Gabrielle Prado, CEO and President of Procon Global Investment Group. Jan, Gabrielle, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Gerard.
Thank you for having us, Gerard.
All right, so Jan, tell us what this event's all about. Get us started with that. Yeah.
This is the 18th annual League and Legislature luncheon that the Madison County Business League has hosted. We started out in 2009 with our first luncheon, and we had about 30 people there, legislators, members, and so Senator Walter Michel was very encouraged and wanted us to host our events at the Capitol. Yeah. So we did that for numerous years, and then we grew and grew, and we grew to the size that we needed a large venue like the Westin today, which is a beautiful event space for us and can accommodate close to 500 guests today at our event. Anyway, Lieutenant Governor Hoseman is going to be our special guest. Every year we rotate between the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the Speaker of the House. So this year was the lieutenant governor's turn, so we're looking forward to hearing from him to give us an update on what's happening in the legislature. And the purpose of the meeting really is to share Madison County's legislative priorities. And Madison County is a economic development leader in the state, and we're very proud of all the successes that we've had, and we want to be able to continue that through our collaboration between our business community, our business leaders, and our legislature and congressional delegation. So that's why we're here today.
Gabrielle, as CEO and President, I want to make sure I pronounce it right. Pronounce it for me. Precon?
Precon, that's right.
Precon, okay. With the accent a little different there. Global Investment Group. Tell us what your company does.
Yeah, no, first, thank you for having me, SuperTalk, the best show out there in the media, so I appreciate you, Gerard.
You bet.
So we're the developers of Topgolf, brought the first Topgolf to Madison County, to Richland, which right now is the #1 location in the world for them per square foot. I often say that Mississippi is the greatest state in the country, and this is really proof of it. And Madison County has been at the epicenter of that, and so we have so many more announcements about to come right next to Topgolf. One of the big ones that Jan Collins, who is right next to me, is a dream of Madison County, but specifically of Madison County Business League Foundation and Jan Collins and President Gerard and all of the mayors surrounding, which is a conference center. So our company, it's in the process of developing a Madison County Conference Center that is going to be able to host 1,500 people, along with a 250-room hotel that is going to be top of the line, just in reference very similar to what a JW Marriott would be. In the same, you only find this in Miami, California, Versailles in Europe. And so our company is the development company behind these projects, and very, very excited to bring this dream to fruition that is once again going to prove that Madison County has been at the epicenter of economic development in retail, now in entertainment with AWS investments. This is just a result of the great work of economic development, everybody from the county to the governor, lieutenant governor, speaker of the house, and our legislatures that have made this possible. So very excited to be here, Gerard.
So, Jan, one of the things that you can tell when you walk into the foyer here approaching the ballroom where we're going to have lunch here in a little while is this big sign over here on the easel that shows all of the Madison County businesses and others that support the Madison County Business League and Foundation. Madison County's got it going on.
We do, and we have grown to 300 members at this point in time, and they're the leading businesses in Madison County area and the Jackson metro area, even other places in the state. So because of the growth in the county, our organization has grown too. We were created in 2008 by Makita, the Madison County Economic Development Authority, and the Madison County Board of Supervisors to serve as their private partner to provide those things that the taxpayers' dollars, quite frankly, can't provide. For their recruiting and expansion of industry, working with the businesses in the county to attract them. So we're very fortunate to have a very strong economic development leadership team. And we just think things are going to continue to grow, and we're very proud, and that's why we've had such success. And the needs that we have for the infrastructure, the health care, the quality of life, workforce development, and the other things that are needed when you have a growing community.
Gabrielle, we got about 30, 40 seconds left. So, Topgolf, huge shot in the arm for Madison County.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And also the big conference center is going to be incredible. These sorts of quality of life amenities are very critical for us to continue to grow our county and our state.
Yeah, so I just want to finish to say exactly what you said, Gerard. Really, the Topgolf, the conference center, is a result of the work of Makide and the Economic Development Agency at the state level with the AWS investment. That's why we believe that Madison County is at the forefront of the AI revolution, and all of these investments and the big things that are coming from President Trump's initiative to get these hyperscalers and technology companies to be at the forefront on AI. Madison County is positioned to be at the epicenter one more time.
100%. Appreciate it. Jan and Gabrielle, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Gerard. Thank you,
Appreciate
Super Talk.
Coming right back with the mayor of Gluckstadt, Mayor Walter Bubba Morrison. Stay with us.
Your home.
Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
And now, another hour of the talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Begin your transition now.
Now on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It is Middays from the Element Wealth Studio, which has been relocated to the West End in downtown Jackson for the annual Madison County Business League and Foundation League and Legislature on this
Hump Day.
It is our great pleasure to welcome now the mayor of Gluckstadt, Mississippi, His Honor Walter Bubba Morrison. Mayor, good to see you, sir. Thanks for coming on.
Yes, sir. Thank you for asking me. Glad to be here.
So the city of Gluckstadt, which is just north of where I live in the southern part of the county, but one of my children lives up there, and I was up there the other day going to his house. It's booming up there, man. It's awesome.
It is. It's absolutely booming, and we're 5 years old, getting ready to be 5 years old, and it is amazing the growth that's occurred in those 5 years.
It seems like just yesterday we were fighting to become incorporated, right?
Absolutely.
5 years.
Absolutely, and not too long before that, we were shooting doves where they got bank buildings built. So it's a lot has happened.
So why? Mayor, what's the attraction to the city of Gluckstadt? I could probably do an ad for you, but you're the mayor. I'm going to let you do it.
Yeah, I have said repeatedly that I think that people really like to have three things when they come to a community. They want a safe place to live, a safe place to raise their families. They want good schools, and if those can be public schools, all the better. And they want a good business environment, places where they can set up businesses, invest their money and their time, and I think Gluckstadt has all of that.
Yeah, and certainly you do. And what's really cool about it is, as you indicated, is that we were shooting doves not too long ago, and the deer were frolicking around in the fields, and now there's bank buildings, but it's all modern structures and buildings. Everything's so new and shiny and clean. It's just pretty neat, isn't it?
It really is. And, I think we get spoiled. I grew up in a small town in South Louisiana, and I go there frequently because my mom and dad, my brothers and all still live there. And, I drive through that old small town, and you see very little of that kind of stuff. It's hard to really comprehend how truly spoiled we are when you ride around and everything is new and everything is being built. It's an amazing thing.
It really is. So the county overall, though, that's why we're here today, of course, is booming as well. An unbelievable amount of business investment flowing into the county. You're aware of this. The shops are full in Gluckstadt. The restaurants are full. The hotels are full. A lot of cars on the road. Just a lot of buzz, a lot of energy, a lot of positivity. man, this is what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. You drive around other parts of the state, and I say this all the time, there are a lot of people who wish they had what Madison County has. We've got it going on right now.
Well, there's no doubt, and I think that just as you were describing what is appealing about Gluckstadt, we could also, I believe, could we not make those same assertions about the county? We got, as you said, we've got great schools, great health care, great neighborhoods. We got very low crime, excellent transportation infrastructure, great places to worship. Fantastic amenities. We were just talking to Gabrielle with the Topgolf facility down in Ridgeland, which is just doing fantastic. Every time I ride by, the parking lot's full.
Yeah, and I think, there is just an excitement in Madison County. I was just talking to Joey Deason a while ago, and, can you imagine a bigger cheerleader from anybody than Joey Deason?
The Madison County Economic Development Authority Executive Director, folks, yeah.
This guy, he lives and breathes Madison County, all that he wants to do for it and help it, and that's not alone. There's everybody here is so excited about Madison.
As you could tell by the attendance today, we're watching all the folks show up for the luncheon today, and you saw the room. Every table has got a sponsor, and there are going to be a lot of people here today, and it just shows you the commitment to the county by across the ecosystem. Everybody is committed, whether they're in education or healthcare, the private sector, across all the private sector industries. Just as you say, as Joey lives and breathes the county, so do those people.
Yeah, and Jan Collins, goodness gracious, she'll make you come out here and be excited about it.
No doubt. It's a great model, and I think you're right. It's one that I think other counties could benefit from perhaps replicating and finding out what they're doing, because it's certainly paying dividends.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the huge AWS project, as you know, Mayor, is just south of your town, or pardon me, just north of your town of Gluckstadt and Canton, and then you got a campus south of it as well in Ridgeland.
Right.
There are two campuses, both in the county. Incredible amount of money and just industry that AWS is bringing to the county.
That's right. You're going to have folks who want to live in our city, who want to eat in our city, and put some of that now $4.50 gallon gasoline in their cars. And so, look, it's exciting. It's a great time for us in the city of Gluckstadt.
We're hoping that we're going to get that behind us here sooner rather than later. We were just talking about that on the show earlier. And hopefully we'll get through it. We had one of our listeners that texted, said, I'm a trucker. I've been through this before in the other administrations. I'll get through this one. I believe that's also the case. But in the meantime, a lot of business capital is flowing into the county. And as you know, it's a team effort. It's like you said, Joey Deason, Madison County Economic Development Authority. And then you got the state. Mississippi Development Authority, the governor, our lawmakers, our supervisors, of course, our local leaders such as yourself, our business leaders. Everybody comes together, and you know what? The prospects see that, do they not? And they've
absolutely.
told you about it.
Look, private investment in our community is amazing. I was in a meeting at City Hall yesterday, and there are 4 or 5 big economic development projects, big for the city of Gluckstadt, coming in. People are knocking down our door to build in our community.
That's awesome.
Something I never thought that I would see to the level that I've seen it.
So, Mayor, the good news about that, of course, is it's just great to have that kind of investment in the building of the city. The challenge, I'm not going to say bad news, the challenge is you got to make sure you got the infrastructure there to support it.
And that is the single biggest problem that we have in the city. Traffic is a disaster. I was speaking to a lady here earlier, said she drives through Gluckstadt twice a day, and I almost had to apologize. It is a major, major hurdle that we have, and, hopefully the legislature will help us. The county's done a good job of helping us, and so I think that we have some answers to the problems, but they just don't happen overnight, and they also cost an enormous amount of money to get accomplished.
Speaking of which, how are your finances in the city?
The city's finances are really good. I think that our annual budget is about $10 million.
Okay.
And as of today, I think we have about $5 million in reserve. So we have, a 6-month reserve should something terrible happen. And I think that's just smart. And it's important for us to be able to have that because, we leverage that money. We get grants and things that we have to have some matching funds for, and that enables us to do that by having some reserve.
Yeah. If you've got your powder dry when those opportunities come along, you can take advantage of it.
That's right.
So is this something that's perhaps in the founding documents of the city as a requirement, or just a decision you and your alderman made?
No, there's nothing that requires us to do it, but I think we've all approached it from a conservative perspective, and I think everybody thinks alike, that we don't just need to unnecessarily spend money, and it's better to have a little in reserve than not. What I have really encountered, though, whereas, most private businesses and your household think that way, there's a fine line between having surplus in a municipal account, per se, versus people complaining that maybe you're taxing them too much.
Exactly.
So you kind of got to be careful about that, but I think we've hit the mark right on the head.
Gotcha. We got a little over a minute left or so, Mayor. Talk about your staff. Police department, police chief, fire department, fire chief, so forth.
I get too much credit for how good the city's doing, and the truth of the matter is that it is our department heads and our rank and file employees that deserve all of the credit. We have a wonderful police force. We have a dedicated police chief. Our administration, we have a wonderful city clerk in Lindsay Kellum, and our public works department. I mean, I see those guys out there in 100-degree heat cutting grass and running weed eaters, and they've got a smile on their face, and they love their job.
Well, it looks great.
Yes, and we have, just wonderful people. The city could do just fine without me, but it couldn't survive and thrive without those people.
Yeah, awesome. Well, you're gracious to give them credit, but I know behind the scenes you got a lot to do with that as well, and we are thankful for your leadership. It's exciting because the city just kind of popped up out of nowhere, and it's not going anywhere but up. Congratulations.
That's right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Folks, we're stepping aside for a break right now. We've been talking to the mayor of Gluckstadt, Walter Bubba Morrison. We appreciate him coming on. Coming right back with Willie Simmons. He's the Central District Transportation Commissioner. Once again, we're at the Westin in downtown Jackson for the annual Madison County Business League and Foundation League and Legislature.
So good, I got you.
Hey, this is Bob, and if you're like...
We interrupt this program. Gerard Gibert.
Here we go. This is huge news. Huge news. You need to listen to this.
Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Rocket.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays live today from the Westin in downtown Jackson. We have relocated the Element Wealth Studios to the alcove here that serves the big grand ballroom. Folks are filing in there for the Madison County Business League and Foundation's annual League and Legislature event. It's our great pleasure to welcome now the Central District Transportation Commissioner for the state of Mississippi, Commissioner Willie Simmons. Good to see you, sir. Thanks for coming on.
Always a pleasure.
Yes, sir.
This is a great day.
Yes, sir, it is. So, in Madison County, my home county, you can see that people are serious about the quality of life here in the county with the fantastic attendance here today.
They are, and I'm always impressed with how the Madison County Business League and the leadership in Madison County can attract and draw folks and work together on plans and projects. So I'm very impressed. Thank you.
Sir. Well, and we appreciate you, sir, because as you well know, transportation infrastructure, quality transportation infrastructure is essential to a quality of life, to growing a county, a state's, or any area's economy. And that's a never-ending task.
It is. And, George, I'm going to say my boss, Brad White, the CEO of the Department of Transportation, he and I always talk about that without infrastructure, you can't have a community. You can't have medical services. You can't have the first responders, school, hospital. None of those things can happen without a good infrastructure, transportation.
Well, we've been blessed in Madison County. It's not by accident, of course. There have been numerous infrastructure improvements and even more on the boards.
More on the borders. And we're looking forward to having the legislature to help complete some projects, thereby giving us the resources that's very much needed. And we're going to place priority in taking care of Madison County because Madison County is key to the Metro Jackson area, especially with Interstate 55 coming through in the manner it does. And with all of the growth and the growth that is occurring there now, we need the infrastructure to be completed to make sure that we can move our citizen and the cargo to their destination.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk to us about the rest of the state, Commissioner, or the rest of your district, I should say, within the state. Anything else notable you got going on you want the folks to know about?
We have a lot of work going on, and now I get complaints from individuals calling and saying they don't want to stop going through the work zone. But when you start over on the east side of the district, over in the Shelby County, we are finishing up the last phase of 4-lane and Highway 19 going from Meridian up to Shelby County. We also are looking at doing some work on Highway 80 and 11 because of the growth in the Meridian area. So there's a lot of attention going on in that area. I was there on yesterday giving out TAP grants, and we gave out $5 million to the city of Meridian, the county, the East Mississippi Community College, as well as the Board of Supervisors, and Marion also. Coming back this way, we're doing a lot of work on Interstate 20, getting ready to pave the section of Interstate 20 from Scott County back over to East Brandon exit. And then we are planning for a major project on Interstate 20, $179 million project that we're going to rework Interstate 20 all the way from the stack over to Highway 18.
Okay.
Down on Interstate 55, we are paving that area. And on Interstate 20, going over toward Vicksburg, we have a lot of work going on Interstate 20. Paving Interstate 20 from Highway 18 over to Clinton, but also the Big Black River, replacing those 3 bridges at the Big Black River and at Flowers Interchange. When we finish that up, we're going to go into the city limits of Vicksburg and do some work on 20. We're not going to do the safety improvements that we need to complete the interchanges in Vicksburg, but we're going to start that process as soon as we finish the project at Flowers and the Big Black River. So we have a lot of work going on here. And in Madison County, believe it or not, Highway 51, we have a bridge project where we're replacing 4 bridges in Madison County on Highway 51. That slowed down traffic some, but 2 of those bridges are now being worked on, and then we're going to come back and do another 2 so that we wouldn't shut the whole system down. A lot of work.
That is a bunch. So my next obvious question, Commissioners, do we have enough money for all this?
We have enough money for those things that I talked about. Now, the one that we really need the money from, and the leadership on both sides in the House and the Senate have indicated that they are very supportive of it, and that is widening of Interstate 55 in Madison County.
Okay.
That's going to be pretty close to a $200 million project.
Wow.
And we are hoping that the legislature, prior to their leaving, will put somewhere in an appropriation bill the money needed to make that happen.
Well, we were just talking to Gluckstadt Mayor Bubba Morrison about that. You know, he has a strong interest in that because his community is booming, and that little stretch between there is well traveled, as you know, and it needs improvements, needs to be increased in size.
To have a lot of growth going back to when Walmart came and then Nissan. In addition to that, now with the data center coming and energy, building a new facility, and more things that you all have on the books there in Madison County, we have to make sure that we can move the traffic. And the only way that we're going to be able to do that without a lot of delays is going to be to widen Interstate 55.
Yeah, no doubt.
That project is very important.
All right, so, Commissioner, last year the legislature passed legislation that implemented a 9-cent increase in the excise tax on fuel, phased in over 3 years, 3 cents per year. The first 3 cents went into effect July 1 of last year. The next 3 cents will be added this coming July. Have you seen any financial impact of that?
we're beginning to get some of that money then. The way in which it was done, it's going to be phased in, as you indicated, over a 3-year period. We anticipate about $180 million when the full 9 cents is put in place. That's something that the legislature did, stop kicking the can down the road, so to speak. Because, as you well know, I served in the Senate for 26 years, and we was never able to get any movement on increasing that. So we went from 1987 until last year, where they passed House Bill 1, and they're going to give us that 9 cents. I'm so proud of that, and I want to say thanks to our legislative members, the governor, lieutenant governor, and the speaker for supporting getting that legislation through, because it's going to do great things for Mississippi and for us in trying to maintain the infrastructure system that we have. We won't be able to build a lot of capacity projects out of that, but it's certainly going to help with the maintenance. And the fact that we have the lottery money, the governor's already signed a bill this year removing the repealer so that the lottery money will continue to come into the Department of Transportation. So that's going to be very helpful to us.
Okay, I didn't know that. You're breaking news on me there, because, you know, I serve on the lottery board, because we don't have anything to do with the law. We just do what the legislature tells us. So to explain to the people that first $80 million of proceeds generated by the lottery currently goes to the State Highway Fund, in accordance with the original Lottery Act, the Alice G. Clark Act, that was to expire at the end of 28, and then the first $80 million would go to the general fund. So you're saying that
the House and the Senate passed the bill, sent it to the governor, he signed it.
Okay.
So we now
stays with the State Highway Fund.
It's going to stay with the Department of Transportation, and that's great.
I think that's the way to do it. And honestly, be honest with you, even though I know you're a former senator, I'd rather see it dedicated to that purpose, knowing where that money's going. They're getting caught up in the slush fund of the general fund and getting moved all over the place, because then we would end up losing out, I think, on some much needed funding to keep our infrastructure current.
Well, let me just say to you, with the commissioners we have, Commissioner Bud, Commissioner Caldwell, and Brad White, our CEO, and the 2,700 employees, we've done a good job of being accountable and being open to the public on what happens. We have a 3-year plan, and we follow that 3-year plan based upon Vision 21 that the legislature put in place, so people know what's going to happen with the money, and they can be assured that when we say, if you give us the money, we're going to do what we told you we was going to do with it, and we're going to make it happen as swift and as fast as possible. So we're very excited about the legislature having the confidence and the faith in the commission to give us those kind of dollars. And you can see, based upon the fact that we have site projects being worked on everywhere you go. You can travel very little in the state of Mississippi now and don't see some work going on somewhere on a highway in which you're traveling on. And that's the reason that we're able to do that when the federal government give us the money that they give us, which is about 49% of our budget.
Total budget, right? Which is about what, $1.5 billion or so?
$1.5 billion. And then the rest of it comes from the state. We take that money, and federal legislators, our federal delegation, and state legislators, you know that we're going to do what we say we're going to do with the money.
Okay. Any sort of initiatives that are underway in the department, Commissioner? You've got about 30 seconds left. Just to improve efficiencies? I'm sorry they only gave you 30 seconds for that, but anything we got going on there?
It's constant. We look at our policies from time to time, and we give you a good example. When we did Highway 49 and some other highways here in the Jackson metro area, and looking at the soil, we understand that we have to shift our policies and do things different. So we are now, when we go out and do a project, we're going much deeper with our engineers to make sure we check the soil and that it works. So we're constantly shifting and changing our policies based on what we see out here.
Okay. And lots of new technology being introduced every day that makes that process, right?
And we have to keep up and stay ahead of AI.
Sure, absolutely. We've been talking to Commissioner Willie Simmons. He is, of course, the Central District Transportation Commissioner for the state of Mississippi. Always good to see you, Commissioner. Thanks for coming on, sir.
Thank you.
When we come back, folks, down at the Westin, it's Attorney General Lynn Fitch.
From the Seabrook doc.
Gerard Gibert. He keeps his classified documents right where they belong. Inside a Journey record jacket from the 1980s. Gerard Gibert. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
It is middays, and we are live at the Westin in downtown Jackson. This is for the annual Madison County Business League and Foundations League and Legislature event. We are so pleased to welcome now the Attorney General for the great state of Mississippi, General Lynn Fitch. General, good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Great to see you, too. What an exciting event.
Man, I tell you got to give it to Madison County because they turn out. And we were talking about this with the mayor of Gluckstadt, Bubba Morrison, also Commissioner Willie Simmons, that as you know, it literally does take a village to make for a great quality of life in a community. And when you see folks from across the industry spectrum, our legislative leaders, our statewide leaders, our commissioners, we're grateful that you're here. You get all these folks together, Mississippians can make good stuff happen.
Oh, absolutely. And you're exactly right. The investment that's been put on in Madison County, the rallying together, the unified efforts, wow, they've really grown and showcased the workforce, the schools, infrastructure. It's all really come to fruition. And, you know, you and I have personally watched it now for the last 40 years.
Yeah.
What an exciting time.
It's super. We were just talking to the mayor, as I said, of Gluckstadt earlier, and he said, we have shiny new bank buildings now where we used to hunt birds. So, I think that's a good way to put it.
Exactly. Think about all that pasture land and nothing out there. And now look at these businesses and the growth factor and all the different
totally awesome, isn't it?
Different groups really that are moving there.
We're so excited about all the growth. And I think this is spilling over across the rest of the state as well, right? We're seeing lots of new projects and lots of development, lots of expansion and growth across the entire state of Mississippi, and in no short part to the efforts of a cross-section of a lot of people. It's government, it's the private sector, and of course, it's our fantastic citizens and our businesses who are represented here today as well.
Absolutely, and I think you've hit it just so importantly. It is a cross-section, everybody being so supportive. We have a great state, and our people are amazing. And when we bring the businesses in and people are added to our great state, they love it. Again, the quality of life, the true hospitality, the sincere empowerment of one another, and seeing it move across our state. Madison has been a perfect example, but you're right, it's catching on so many areas of our state.
Give us an update, General, from the Attorney General's office. What are you guys working on these days?
Well, there's a lot happening right now. And, again, we are very grateful and work with our legislators. As you said, there's so many of them here at this wonderful event. They're doing amazing work, and they're being very insightful to things that people need across our state, different areas that need to be addressed. So we've been working wonderfully with our legislature. So a couple of hot topics that have been really important for us. We've already got a couple of bills that are headed to the governor for signature. Not only do we do a lot of certainly civil, criminal cases, but we are also out there doing a lot of other covering a lot of other areas that are important to everyone, particularly in law and order. And absolutely just doing the right thing that empowers and uplifts different citizens. A couple of the bills that are already headed to the governor, human trafficking. You and I have talked about human trafficking quite a bit. There is a bill headed to the governor for signature where if you're a buyer now of the human trafficking, you're going to suffer a lot more penalties, because if you don't have the buyers, you don't have human trafficking.
Yeah.
So I think that speaks volumes of we're protective and we're taking care of people, and we're looking for every way that we possibly can to eradicate that situation. Representative Jill Ford was instrumental in getting that legislation moving and, again, being very protective. The other one, just, you know, I've also talked a lot about our children in our state and trying to do the right thing to protect our children. And one we've had a concern about has been child support. Having child support earnings from the casinos be going first to the children as opposed to straight into the pocket of the winner. And
right.
If you're the non-custodial parent and you owe child support, that too has come out, and we're excited about that. We had Senators Walter Michelle and David Blunt, and then the Representative Casey Urey and Jay McKnight. They really prioritize this for the children, so we're excited to have that move forward. So we've two big wins. We've got several other pieces of legislation that are important to all of us. One of them particularly, you and I talk about law and order a lot. We have a bill right now, Senate Bill 2710. It's an important bill because it's a crime package bill. It's about reducing gang violence in our state.
Okay, so of course you know the issue you brought up with casino women's winnings, essentially having to come out first and pay back child support. We had that in the lottery as part of the original lottery law. We just haven't had that for casino winnings specifically.
Well, and we appreciate the insight and the strategical moves that you all did in the original legislation for the lottery. So that was part of the model.
And we collected a lot of money doing that too. Significant amount has come out when people come to redeem their winnings and find out you got child support in arrears, and we deduct that before we pay them at the lottery. And so it's just the right thing to do. These individuals that are responsible for this, where the court has ordered them to pay back this certain amount of money and pay for a certain amount of child support, they got to do that.
Well, and right now, Gerard, we're looking at about 160,000 children in our state that are owed child support. That's over $1 billion.
That's crazy.
So, we need to look for every direction to help support these children. They didn't ask to be in that situation, and we need to help them on their journey.
Yeah, that's so crazy. Yeah, I agree. I think that's good policy, good law. So, my daughter's, who works for Child Protection Services, and she sent me this piece here about our youth court system, which presently operates in a way that is not publicly available, publicly exposed. And I think there's legislation to change that. Are you familiar with that? And is that something we ought to do?
Well, absolutely. We need to take a hard look at our youth court system because, again, it's time to reevaluate and make sure, are we serving our children the best that we possibly can. And so I know there's been some legislation. There's been various things that have passed. Last year, we enjoy always our partnership with CPS. We were able to work together and change some legislation last year where CPS could get in at the very beginning where the children begin in the foster program, as could the Attorney General's office. We do the termination of parental rights. So the great thing is now we're in at the very beginning, again, trying to support and love on these children. We did a pilot program, and because we got in at the beginning, we've now been able to cut the time that a child is waiting for their termination of parental rights by over 50%.
Wow.
It's like last year alone, we were able to free over 650 children for adoption. So we're trying to move that system working together. It's all about partnership, and certainly the youth court plays a part in that as well.
So it seems like when they're operating somewhat in secret and they're shielded from public exposure, that possibly that could delay things, gum up the works perhaps, and that the idea behind this policy would be to expose that and come out of secrecy.
Well, I'm not sure exactly on all the specifics of that piece of the legislation. I know there is a lot of conversation about kind of looking at it over in totality. Again, how do we, best serve our children? And things have changed in the last several decades.
And you're dealing with minors. You have to be careful on what gets to the public.
Absolutely. And that's where we have to protect them at all levels. These precious children don't want to be in this system. We need to value them and be looking out for them in their best interest. Right now we have about 4,000 children that are wards of the state. So when you take that into mind and you think about what we're talking about, things have certainly changed. I think we're going to have to call on all of our partners to really look for ways to get these children adopted, ways to get them into forever homes, and to make it happen much more quickly.
Yeah. All right, General, what else you got going on you want the folks to know about at the General's office?
Talking about children, back on the gang bill that's up right now. Yeah. Because so much of that involves the children, Gerard. So this bill, which is... It's been endorsed by the Sheriff's Association, the Police Chiefs Association, the Prosecutors Association, MML. Certainly, you can tell it has a lot of great bandwidth because there are children involved. We all read time and time again about children committing crimes, and we got to help those kids in the youth court system. And again, but we also have to get to the one that recruited them. So think about it. These recruiters of these gangs are taking these kids and making that be part of their initiation.
Sure.
They're doing all the dirty work for the gang members. So this new legislation will give us the opportunity to really help those children and redirect them, which we need to. Otherwise, we're going to see them in a full lifetime of crime. The second part is we've got to get after that recruiter.
Yeah.
Who gave that child that illegal gun.
You're so right. And you know this, that you have obviously a short window of time when you're dealing with a child. And there's those years that if we don't get it right, you're trying to undo something as they grow and age and become adults. And we want them to be productive members of society. If you don't have that proper upbringing and environment when they're young, it's just harder.
It is, but the great thing about our state, we really do look on ways to protect our children and to really enhance them to become great citizens of our state. So.
But 4,000 that are wards of the state, we got to get them homes.
It's alarming, yeah. So, but we're all in it together, and I'm excited about all the partnerships going on across our state.
100%. Thanks for coming on, General.
Thanks for always having me. Great to be with you today.
Attorney General Lynn Fitch has been our guest here. The Element Wealth Studio, once again, relocated to the West End in downtown Jackson for the Madison County Business League and Foundation Annual League and Legislature. Coming right back with Sam Kelly. He's the chair of the Madison County Business League and Foundation. And Phil Buffington, he's the chair of the Government Relations and Government Affairs Committee. Stay with us. We're coming right back.
Do the mess around. Everybody's doing the mess around.
Poly-Up of Mississippi.
Covering the stories that matter most to Mississippians. Gerard Gibert. Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
I feel free. I feel free. I feel free.
Days from the Westin in downtown Jackson. The Element Wealth Studio has been relocated to downtown Jackson at the Westin for the annual Madison County Business League and Foundations League and Legislature. It's our great pleasure to welcome now Sam Kelly. He's a partner with the Brunini Law Firm, serves as the Madison County Business League and Foundation Chair, also president of the Madison County School Board, and also Phil Buffington, partner at Balsh & Bingham Law Firm, past Madison County Business League and Foundation Chair, current chair of the Government Relations Committee for the League. Sam, Phil, good to see you guys. Thanks for coming on.
Great to see you. Thank you, Gerard. Thanks for having us.
You bet. So, the first thing you got to be impressed with, Sam, is the attendance. We never have a problem packing this room, which just shows you how interested are the people and how passionate are the people of Madison County about the quality of life in their community, in their county.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We're so fortunate to have so much going on in Madison County, and it's interesting that if you look out through that room, certainly you have a lot of people from Madison County, but there are also people from a lot of other places that are coming to see what we have going on, and we're excited about everything that's going on and our opportunity to help participate in that.
Phil, so as Government Affairs Committee Chair, in full disclosure, I serve on the League and Foundation Board with these gentlemen, and specifically on the committee with Phil, and we appreciate his leadership. You've done a great job, I think, Phil, in just connecting our county leaders, and most importantly, our residents and our business community with the government. That's really the primary purpose of the committee and of the League and Foundation in general.
Absolutely. And, it's a team effort because we've got one of the biggest committees in the Business League, and we've got one of the most active committees, as you well know. And we spend a lot of time trying to maintain our relationship not only with the Madison County delegation, but beyond that to the statewide elected officials and other representatives and senators that we rely on to help us move things forward in Madison County.
So, Sam, in your role as the chairman, of course, the primary responsibility is to serve as that liaison, as we said, that conduit between the business community and our lawmakers and legislative leadership. We've got the Lieutenant Governor, Delbert Hoseman, here today. Of course, he's a pretty big factor in the lawmaking in our state, the way our system works. Anything in particular you're expecting from him? Anything you can talk about that the League is requesting of the legislature on behalf of the county?
Yeah, well, Phil's going to cover, I think, specifically our legislative priorities for the upcoming year.
Okay.
That that we've talked about, and as you said, the committee has developed. And let me just say, as an aside, Phil Buffington, as you said, has done a fantastic job with that
100%,
committee.
no doubt.
He spends a lot of time and effort, and he deserves a lot of credit for what we've been able to accomplish through that committee. So thank you, Phil, for all your efforts. And I'll let him comment on the specifics if you want him to.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go back because y'all keep focusing on me, but quite frankly, what we do as the Government Affairs Committee would not happen without all the members. And like I said, it's one of the largest, if not the largest committee, and they're very active and very engaged. And so I've really got to thank everybody that serves on it, the two of y'all, and then again about 45 or 50 other people. So it really is a lot of fun. And if you enjoy that area, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But our top priorities this year were Weisenberger Road, and that's the widening of that road between Parkway East and 51. Also, Gluckstadt Road was one of our priorities, and that's the widening of Gluckstadt Road to move traffic to the interstate. And then the last one is Commerce Park Drive in the south end of the county that would run as a connector road from the Highland Colony Parkway back up to the bridge across the interstate there, coming in from the Reservoir East.
Pretty typical. Infrastructure projects are always top of mind, and that's critical to serving our county and growing our county.
I would be, and I might as well go ahead and jump right into it. There's one other issue that we've championed in the past that's been redirected, and the Mississippi Department of Transportation has taken the lead on, and that's the widening of the interstate that's near and dear to everyone's heart in Madison County, and that's still moving forward, and we're very hopeful for that. And so I just wanted to let everybody know that too.
Sam, any particular activities or goals that you can share with us in the 30, 40 seconds or so for the League and Foundation?
Sure. I would just say we continue to be involved very much in assisting Makita in any way we can with economic development efforts. A big part of that, obviously, is our education system in Madison County that I spend a lot of time and effort on, and we're going to continue to do that. We have a great program with the students that we implement through the Business League, and it's been great, wildly successful. As a matter of fact, we had people this week telling us about the benefits of that, and also an executive leadership program.
It's awesome as well. So. Yeah, sure is. Sam, Phil, appreciate you guys coming on.
Charlie, always thank you.
You bet. Folks, we're stepping aside for a break. Once again, we're at the Westin for the Madison County Business League and Foundation's annual League and Legislature event. It's time for Fox News Super Talk News. On the other side, we're going to talk a bit. And then we got Joey Deason, the Executive Director of the Madison County Economic Development Authority. Stay with us.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert. Here on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Winter is here again, oh Lord.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. Hour 3 of the program is now live from the Westin in downtown Jackson. That's where we have relocated the Element Well studio today for the Madison County Business League and Foundation's annual League and Legislature. So we're here. We've got a full hour remaining. We're going to talk to Joey Deason, Executive Director of the Madison County Economic Development Authority, find out what kind of projects might be in the works in the county to add on to the number of investments that have already been announced in process at the various stages in the county today. So incredible. On the C Spire text line, so I sent Tyler. I do appreciate you pointing that out, the president, with respect to his stand on mail-in voting. He pivoted a bit in the State of the Union, actually right before the State of the Union, and then he included a discussion in the State of the Union about supporting mail-in ballots, except mail-in ballots for illness, disability, military, or travel. So he wants to ban mail-in ballots except for those purposes. I do have his Truth Social. I do read his Truth Social. I share it often, Tyler, on the program, as a matter of fact. I don't doubt and don't deny that mail-in ballots have the potential for fraud. Paper ballots that are cast at the ballot box do as well, honestly. And so do any ballots cast on and recorded by machines. All ballots are subject to some sort of nefarious activity and misconduct. And he says all mail-in ballots have the potential for fraud, should not be allowed. At least he's consistent. Well, I hear you, except he did pivot, like I'm saying. There was one point where he said, let's ban all mail-in ballots. And I think that once perhaps someone in his inner circle advised that we really need to make sure that the members of our armed forces and those who are infirmed or are unable to travel to a precinct to cast a ballot still are afforded their constitutional right to cast a ballot. I think the president supports that with certain safeguards in place. He certainly said as much a couple of weeks ago in the State of the Union address. Mike in Gulfport says many of the disenfranchised potential voters are the folks who illegally crossed our borders during the Biden years. It's really hard to tell how many are actually signed up, registered to vote. I actually have a little bit of a different take on that, though. I completely support all the measures that are contemplated in the SAVE Act, and I was talking earlier about potential legislation here in the state of Mississippi that would implement those same sorts of measures within the state with respect to the voter rolls and voter registration, just ensuring that someone is a citizen when they register to vote in the state, and also more importantly, requiring that the Secretary of State scrub the rolls on an annual basis by comparing everyone who is listed in those files with the federal SAVE database to ensure that they are in fact legitimate, bona fide U.S. citizens, and if they're not, they get removed. So I completely support that legislation. It's really hard to tell how many are signed up. I do have a theory about that. And it varies from state to state because different states are just sort of take different action and have different responses to undocumented immigrants. But when a person goes to sign up to vote, they're kind of calling attention to themselves. And I think most illegals do their best to detract attention from themselves so as to not be fall into the hands of ICE or federal law enforcement, in which case they'd be potentially handled, arrested, deported, sent into a detention center, any other various measures. But I think they work pretty hard not to draw attention to themselves. So it's hard to tell. Now, somebody on the C Spire text line yesterday said that Alabama conducted this exercise and found 20 in the entire state of Alabama. I did talk to Secretary of State Michael Watson about this a couple of days ago because I was curious as to why do we need a law for the Secretary of State to access the federal SAVE database. And my understanding from our discussion was that he actually can't act on his own accord as the Secretary of State to just verify that the names listed in the state's election management system maintained by the Secretary of State, that those names would be compared in the data associated with those names, actually, because you got to have more than just a name. You could have multiple people with the same name, but there's lots of other identifying data, and you would compare that to the SAVE database to ensure that they're U.S. citizens. That's the purpose of the SAVE database maintained by the federal government. Now, let's be honest, it ain't perfect either, but it's better than nothing, and it's certainly a safeguard that should be utilized. And if it turns out that someone gets removed and they can prove that, no, I'm really a citizen and I am entitled to vote, okay, well, just provide your documents and they'll correct that situation and get it corrected on both sides. So it's hard to tell. I suspect that if there are illegals that are registered to vote that appear in the voter rolls, that likely those are in states that seem to look the other way, is one way to put it. California is one that comes to mind, New York, Maryland, New Jersey, the deep Illinois, the deep blue states, Minnesota, heck, we already know about that one. Deep blue states where they really don't want to know. They prefer not to know because they don't want to act. And they don't want to apprehend those individuals. They certainly don't want to deport them. And therefore, they just kind of look the other way. Whereas I think in the red states, the opposite sentiment exists. And in the state of Mississippi, we have legislation pending that would require state law enforcement at all levels to cooperate with ICE. And upon the arrest of any individual and obtaining their personal identifying information, they too would be required to bump that against the SAVE database. And if they find that, hey, this person's illegal, they would then have to bring in ICE and to deal with that particular situation. I support that legislation. I think that's common sense. I've seen some people push back and say, well, the state doesn't have the money or the resources to go tracking down the illegals. That's not what the legislation does. It just simply, it's really a preemptive measure to ensure that we don't have any, let's say, Democrat-run cities in our state whose leaders would not allow or certainly encourage their law enforcement not to cooperate with ICE. Haven't we seen that, Rhino, in other cities in this country? Minnesota, I guess, is kind of ground zero for that sort of activity from statewide leaders, the crazy Governor Walz, and then the law enforcement chiefs of police and sheriffs and so forth in Minneapolis and around that area, where they're just refusing to cooperate, which is insane, with federal law enforcement. So that's what this is about. I don't think there's anything specific happening in the state of Mississippi along those lines right now. If you guys know of anything, let me know. I'd like to know about it and share it. I think it's more preemptive in nature. Hey, this is now law, so don't think about not cooperating, refusing to cooperate with federal law enforcement, immigration enforcement, when you know there's a situation where there's an illegal in the country. I think that's straightforward. The president has also recently said that perhaps we need to be a little more lenient on those that are working in various industries, such as agriculture. Some of these are illegal. Some of them are actually have some sort of legal immigration status that permits them to work. And the president has, I think, received lots of feedback from those industries where they indicate we can't find any workers. I think that's a shame. And I think, unfortunately, that's largely because many of those people who could work and are American citizens choose not to, but rather opt to just enroll in all the plethora of government benefits and often scam those benefits. And they're satisfied with that lifestyle as opposed to actually having to work for a living, which is kind of disgusting. But I think it goes on. I don't think you can deny that, as sad as that might be. So, really, really a problem that I hope gets addressed, and I hope that there's some positive movement on the SAVE Act up in the Senate. But I'm not holding my breath for that, unfortunately. Just looks like that could be a problem just based on the numbers and based on some statements made by members of the Senate. Lisa Murkowski from Alaska, Tom Tillis, Mitch McConnell, Tom Tillis from North Carolina, Mitch, of course, from Kentucky. Yeah, it's a problem. By the way, the president has said doesn't look like he's going to endorse anyone in the U.S. Senate race in Texas. And the decision to weigh in needed to occur before the deadline yesterday for both of these folks to remain on the ballot. One of them could have dropped out on that deadline with an endorsement. That was the plan, but it looks like the president's had a change of heart about that. Coming right back with the Element Wealth Studio at the Westin in Jackson for the Madison County Business League and Foundation.
Family Termite is
We interrupt this program. Gerard Gibert.
Here we go. This is huge news. Huge news. Huge. You need to listen to this.
MidDays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Yeah, so once again, just following up on this Senate race in Texas, which is going to be the barn burner of all Senate races, there's no doubt about that. A cool $122 million spent in the primary between the Republican and Democrat primaries held a couple of weeks ago. And now we got two very high-profile Republican candidates in the runoff that will be going at it against each other. That runoff scheduled for the middle of May. There was some talk from the president that he was going to endorse one of those candidates and ask the other to drop out so that the endorsed candidate would become the Republican candidate to face James Tallarico, the Democratic candidate, in the general election in the fall, and go 100% focused on that. But as a result of this deadline passing and the president at this point opting not to endorse a candidate, he still could do it, but that's still after the deadline for candidates to formally drop out. I'm just not sure the other candidate that's not endorsed would. By the way, the runoff's May 26th. So what this means is that they're going to spend a bunch of time, a bunch of money, two Republicans fighting each other, as opposed to campaigning against their eventual ultimate general election candidate, James Tallarico, who's going to be hyper-focused, he already is, on either of these candidates. Doesn't really matter, just generically focused on the Republican candidate to be the president and Republicans in general, and is well-funded and I think presents well. He's just a crazy person that has a bunch of dumb ideas, such as that there are 6 genders and that abortion is equivalent to Christian kindness. I'm paraphrasing a bit, but he actually supports that numbskull notion. Kind of hard to believe. But he does. But again, a lot of people just overlook all that kind of stuff and look at the presentation of the candidate and the package in general, and that is something that should concern us all, because if Texas should flip that seat to Tallarico, to blue, that would be bad news for Republicans in the coming years in the United States Senate and all the power that also provides. Speaking of crazy blue states, Washington State has jumped off the ledge. They're ever so close to levying a 9.9% millionaire tax. That's what the Democrats in Olympia, the state's capital, are about to do. Incredible. And something to note is that if you want to hollow out your state's economy, just implement an onerous income tax. States that have done that, I didn't realize it till I researched it a bit, but there are some states that didn't have an income tax and implemented one in the 60s and 70s. An example is Ohio adopted its income tax in 1971. And its share as a result of nationwide domestic output fallen by nearly a half. Michigan, in turn, adopted its income tax in 1967. Its share of total state and local tax revenue nationwide fallen by 53%. Pennsylvania, another one, implemented in 71. West Virginia has lagged national population growth by 56% since it implemented its income tax in 1961. So Rhode Island is another example. There are 11. And it's incredible to look at a graph of the lines from 1950 to present day, and you can see the tax adoption as it was implemented, how their share of GDP progressing through time decreased as a result. That's what happens. It's just amazing to me that some of these folks can't figure out that when you take more from people of what they legitimately earn, they tend to produce less. That if you tax, you get whatever it is you tax, you get less of it. And that's really not very wise economic policy. But that's exactly what's going on in Washington State. And then in California, meanwhile, they're ever so close to implementing what would be a wealth tax. I'm not convinced that's constitutional, but a wealth tax. It's actually a one-time wealth tax that would be paid in 27 and 28. I think it's 5%, if I'm not mistaken, on billionaires. Just whatever your wealth adds up to be, which is a complex exercise unto itself, especially for someone that's a billionaire that's got a whole bunch of assets. I can't imagine what that exercise is going to look like and how accurate that would be. And then apply that wealth tax rate on top of that and send that money to Sacramento. That's insane. But that's what they're about to do in California. And unfortunately, there are a lot of young people in this country that support that policy. Not just young people, but there have been some recent polls that show that young people are leaning even more into this notion of socialism. And that's very scary. And the Democrats, I think, are leveraging that, capitalizing on that sentiment, because they have pushed themselves even further to the left over time and have actually become more socialist than they are just liberal on their policies. I don't mean old-fashioned classical liberal. I mean more modern-day liberal. They've kind of jumped the shark on that with proposals for a wealth tax coming from Bernie Sanders and Liz Warren, and a whole new tax plan from Chris Van Hollen and Cory Booker, all to, at least they propose that these policies would create a lot more revenue for the federal government, and then we're just going to send it out the door through a bunch of stupid programs. Terrible policy that will not come to pass, but it's scary to me that they would even consider it. Really is incredible. With respect to the state of Mississippi, just not too sure about what remains on the calendar that prospectively could become law. Rhino, there's not a lot. I don't remember being at this point in the session where there really aren't a lot of measures to analyze and opine on and discuss. I've talked about this version of the SAVE Act, if you will, to tighten up our voting processes is certainly one. And then you've got maybe the highest profile legislation of all, PBM reform. And we spoke yesterday to John McKay, the president of the Mississippi Business Alliance, and about PBM reform and his position on that. We had an individual who owns a pharmacy down in Jones County, a registered pharmacist, about the harmful effects from their industry's perspective, independent pharmacists, of the current PBM environment and why it does need reform. But there's some controversy on the House bill, the Senate bill, and looks like maybe that will head to conference, and we'll see what happens out of that. But that's continues to be a controversial issue here in the state of Mississippi. But it is still alive. You can at least say that, I guess. And the center of the controversy really has to do with the Senate's amendments. The Senate did not concur with the House bill, which by all accounts looked like exactly what was wanted by the independent pharmacists, but it went down to the Senate, and rather than concurring with the legislation, which means it would then go to the governor's desk for signature, instead what happened is the Senate said, no, we're going to amend it, HB 1665, and it added an $11.29 dispensing fee for prescription drugs, which would likely increase costs on businesses and consumers. I think the independent pharmacist's viewpoint is that it wouldn't, that dispensing fee might be passed on, but the benefits of the other provisions that would tend to lower overall drug cost would be a positive thing. So they take a different position on that, do the independent pharmacists from some of the business community that are concerned about this. The bottom line is the House bill got changed, added this dispensing fee to it, and by the Senate, and it's just not clear what the result of that is going to be as this legislation works its way through the legislature. Now, likely, I think, I'll look it up on the break, headed to a conference, I believe, but maybe the highest profile legislative matter remaining in the 2026 session at this point. Can't think of too much more, honestly. Coming right back, the Element Wealth Studio down at the Westin in Jackson for the annual Madison County Business League and Foundation League and Legislature.
From the Seabrook is with Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. That's a little Billy Joel bumping us into this segment here. That's the song that kicked off his fabled career. We're at the Westin in downtown Jackson for the annual Madison County Business League and Foundation League and Legislature. So I did a little quick check there on the break. The Pharmacy Benefit Manager Act, the one that would implement a number of reforms in the way pharmacy benefit managers operate in the state of Mississippi. That's House Bill 1665. It has been amended by the Senate, started in the House, passed, of course, went to the Senate, utilizing the famous rhino procession. I wonder what that would look like, Rhino. Can you describe one for that, to transmit, I should say, the pharmacy benefit manager bill from the House down to the Senate?
That one, it doesn't look a whole lot different, but because it's dealing with pharmacy, they count their steps in fives. So they count 5 steps and then stop, and then count another 5 steps and stop. It's a whole parade of people counting steps by 5.
I love it. Okay. Well, it has been returned for concurrence. You're going to have to dream up some sort of special sessions when, when measures end up in conference, in concurrence. What can we do? What can we do for that?
Oh, that's like a fight night. That's when you have the music and the coming out of each corner into the ring to fight it out.
That's awesome. It kind of feels like that. But the PBM bill, that's what its status is. And then the other measure that I was discussing earlier, that's I'm kind of referring to it as a sort of a mini SAVE Act. And that bill would implement all these various elections integrity measures. And that, too, that's, I believe, let's see, actually, I gave you the wrong number. The 1665, that is the pharmacy benefit bill. And then, check me out on that. Is it 2588? I believe, yeah, the Safeguard Honesty, Integrity, and Elections for Lasting Democracy. Aren't they clever? The SHIELD Act, that is 2588. And that's the one that we were talking about would require implementation of checking citizenship by voting registrars. And those would be the folks down at the county levels that receive those applications and approve those for registration to vote. And then the Secretary of State would be mandated under this measure to check the rolls against the federal SAVE database and remove any that don't come back as legal citizens. So that one, too, in concurrence. There's been some attempts on the part of Democrats, no surprise there, to stop that particular measure. They don't like it. That's consistent with the Democrat sentiment concerning anything related to election integrity across the country, including the SAVE Act at the federal level, which we were talking about earlier. So there you go. Two big high-profile measures, both of which will be headed to conference. Let's see, what do we got here on the C Spire text line? I think Mose told us that when he was stationed out of the country, right, Mose, that he was able to vote. You may have been within the, he's just said outside of Mississippi, not the country, outside of Mississippi. Voted during his military career while stationed outside of Mississippi, using the absentee ballot procedure that's currently in place in the state. So, and appreciate your service, Mose, and thank you for making sure that you voted and exercising your right to vote, especially as a member of our American Armed Forces. On the C Spire text line, two questions. First, do liberals think that you're going to have to show that extended source of identification every time you go to vote, or do they not realize once you verified it's done and you move on with voting in future elections with no issues other than showing the basic ID that everybody shows? No, they don't, and that is I agree, and thanks for pointing that out, that the Democrats who oppose this legislation have been spreading, you've seen this, Rhino, this narrative that's 100% false, that does make it appear the way they describe it, that every time you go to vote, you show up at the precinct and to vote, to cast your ballot, you've got to provide all these various documents that prove your citizenship. That's categorically false. All you have to do is provide a valid photo ID under the SAVE Act, and to obtain that photo ID, you got to prove your citizenship. So the photo ID serves as authentication and validation that you were a citizen. Isn't that the way you understand it, Rhino?
Yeah.
It's pretty simple. So the texter here is right. Once you are on the rolls, that means you've been through that process. You've proven you're a citizen. That's why you were able to register to vote. Now, with respect to those currently on the rolls, the states would be required, again, just like we're trying to do on a statewide level in this measure I was talking about earlier that's headed to conference, they would be required from the federal government to run those voter names against the federal SAVE database to ensure that they only contain legitimate, valid American citizens. It's pretty simple. Now, the other issue is, of course, when you go to register for the first time, you've got to prove you're a citizen. And they make it sound like that's just so hard, so onerous, a passport, which already proves you're a citizen because you can't get a passport without that. You've already provided those documents, such as your birth certificate, in order to obtain a passport. They're making this way more complicated than it actually is in trying to scare people and fearmonger. And again, paint this picture that there's a bunch of people that are going to be disenfranchised. That's just horse hockey. But you're right. They are discussing this and using talking points are the Democrats that certainly project the idea that, yeah, you're going to have to show up with all these documents just to prove you're a citizen in order to vote. Nothing could be further from the truth. You have to do that to register to vote, and then your photo ID validates that you have registered properly as an American citizen. Simple as that. If you're married, that's the one they like to harp on. Well, then you bring your marriage certificate. I got married 45 years ago. I was able to put my hands on mine. It ain't that big a deal. Man, oh man. Is it true you get your registration purged if you don't vote in 2 presidential, or is it 2 congressional elections? Rhino, I don't think that's actually included in the federal SAVE Act, is it? I know there's been some discussion of that. I was discussing that earlier on various interviews we've had with Michael Watson, the Secretary of State, who does support such a procedure. and does support this action. I do too. It's very, very straightforward. We went through all the details there. I don't think the Federal SAVE Act actually prevents that or requires that. You may want to check me out on that, Rhino. I don't recall that being discussed as a provision of the measure, the SAVE Act itself, that we're going to purge you or require the state's election management systems to be purged of anyone who hasn't had some recent activity in voting. So, hey, so we're current state law? No, I don't think it is. It's not current state law. That's exactly what Michael Watson has tried to make happen and hasn't been able to make happen. Isn't that right, Rhino? I'm not wrong about that.
No, it's not state law. I'm double-checking the SAVE Act right now.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, I know, because many times we talked to Michael Watson about it, and he supports such legislation, but we've been unable to make it happen. So, and in the SAVE Act, I don't think that was a provision, but thank you, Rhino, for looking that up. But it makes sense to me, and I don't think it's a big deal. And the idea is because, as we've said so many times, there's a lot of people that are sitting on the voter rolls, honestly, in multiple states because they move around, and nobody thinks about calling the state, their registrar, I should say, at the county level and say, hey, by the way, I'm leaving. Take me off the voter rolls. I just don't think people think about doing that. And this action would go a long way towards ensuring you only appear on one state's voter rolls as a valid citizen eligible to vote. Only one, not multiple. That also big time opens up the door for election fraud. The president's talked about that. Many others have as well.
It's not in the SAVE Act. It's in the National Voter Registration Act from '93. The SAVE Act doesn't change anything in that. In the National Voter Registration Act, if you haven't voted in 2 consecutive federal general elections, they can send you a notice, and if you'd missed 2 federal elections after that notice, then you can be purged.
I don't think anybody does it. Coming right back with Joey Deason, Executive Director of the Madison County Economic Development Authority.
We've done all we can.
Covering the stories that matter most to Mississippians. Gerard Gibert. Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays, final segment from the West End. We're here for the annual Madison County Business League Foundation League and Legislature. We appreciate you joining us. An incredibly well-attended event. Folks during the break there making their way out of the big ballroom, and on their way right now to wrap us up, it's Joey Deason, the Executive Director of the Madison County Economic Development Authority. Joey, thanks for coming on. Yeah, man, so full disclosure, I worked with Joey as a member of the board. Joey has been our executive director for a number of years, and, man, have you ever seen a lot of stuff come through the Makita, as we call it for short. It's been a banner couple of years, Joey, for Madison County.
Gerard, yes, it has. I mean, obviously, when you look at it's been not just the last couple of years, but it's been the last 8 years. We've been very, very fortunate to live in a community in the county that works together, whether it's our state legislature, our executive branch, our supervisors, our municipalities, the business league, and Makita all working together. You know, over the past 8 years, we've done about $17.5 billion of investment. With 6,000 jobs. So it's quite a testament to the community.
High-paying jobs, too.
High-paying jobs. I think the last time I looked at the average numbers, we were right about $65,000.
That's incredible. So what do you attribute this success, Joe? You and I talk about this a lot, and I know you go out and speak a lot about it. I do as well, but, you know, one of the things I brag about all the time was the foresight and the vision that the supervisors of Madison County, you and Makita, had just a little bit before I got there. I can't say that I was involved in that decision, but the mega site itself is just been an incredibly valuable tool and asset to attract this massive investment?
Well, look, it's one of the reasons that I actually moved to Madison County. It's because I saw what could happen, and I knew that they had the quality of life, the educational system, the restaurants, the retail, the reservoir. They had the mega site. They had a lot of attributes that a lot of communities would die for. But at the end of the day, I looked at it and I knew that something wasn't working right. I couldn't from the outside look at it, put my finger on it and understand exactly why was it not successful. Well, fortunately enough, working with the Board of Supervisors, working with Makita, we were able to figure that out. We got it solved. We took down the first 350 acres of the mega site. We put in a substation, and the timing couldn't have been more perfect. At that point, it just really blossomed.
It worked out, and I know you've heard the feedback. I certainly have. When we opened up the fulfillment center, Amazon, of course, the big fulfillment center, the first project at the mega site?
It was the very first project, and I can tell you that I rode by there yesterday, and there's on average about 3,000 employees there. We did a quick count on the parking spots, and we're at about 4,000.
Wow.
And I can tell you the reason that I know that they've stepped up their game is because there are packages that are being delivered to my door every single day that my wife orders that arrive within 24 hours.
It's incredible, and I've remarked before that as I was standing at the grand opening ceremonies, and I happened to be standing next to the individual from Amazon responsible for site selection, and as we looked in the other direction, it would be to the east, to the north, and you saw all that just beautiful virgin land that had been so carefully cleaned and grubbed. Just looks like you're ready to put shovels in the ground and get going. And I just asked a question, as a member of the board, what do you think about this? And he said, this is the best site we have in the country. He told me that. And then the next thing you know, boom, Amazon Web Services comes in and consumes that land.
Well, a lot of people don't know this because not only did they come in and consume the 1,000 acres that Makita owned or had under option, they have more recently purchased an additional 400 acres adjacent.
Yeah.
So right now, AWS technically owns about 1,400 acres out there, and they saw the value of that piece of property as well. I tell this story to numerous people. I remember the first visit from the Economic Development Group from AWS, and we're driving in ATVs, and we get out there, and there was probably 12 or 14 of them, and they had the exact same comments, Gerard. This is gorgeous. This is beautiful. This is where we want to be. And the rest is sort of history at this point, but there's a lot for the future as well.
I know it was a team effort, but I know that you were instrumental in convincing the team to make that investment. And it was a little risk, but it's a risk that paid off in a big way.
Yes.
Before we go here, can you share anything about what's on the boards, what's potentially on the horizon for Madison County?
Well, look, very quickly, yesterday I was actually in Florida, and Salad Days had their grand opening. And people don't realize how phenomenal that is.
Great company.
3 million heads of lettuce, and it's a lot that we're getting from California that we'll get from here now. But at the end of the day, Gerard, there's a lot of things that I can't tell you, but can't tell your listeners.
Yep.
All I can tell you is just keep your ear tuned to Gerard.
Hang on. That's right. Aeroponic farming Salad Days, right?
Hydroponic farming.
That's so cool, man.
It's remarkable.
It
just
really
gorgeous.
Uses a lot less land, a lot less water, and higher yield. Win-win.
68,000 square feet worth.
Incredible. Joey Deason, Executive Director of Makita. Folks, we're gone today. Back tomorrow. Until then, stay safe and God bless.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.